Yo, yo, peep this, which is interesting, and I've heard it before. And a lot of times they are highly attractive females, but I feel like it comes from a place of trauma and fear for the most part.
One of the criticisms many people make against the Bible is that it depicts God in male terms. The most obvious example is God is referred to as he. Why did the Bible do this? Well, here's the answer. Because the Bible is preoccupied with making a
Oh,
kinder,
but
less
sorry,
violent,
yo.
more just world. If you share these goals, and I
That's
suspect you
too slow.
do, then you'll have to agree the Bible made the right decision. Before I explain, however, I need to add an obvious caveat. The God of the Bible is neither male nor female. God transcends gender.
So that's like the whole father thing. I guess it makes it easier. I feel like it kind of puts like a compulsion over men and other men. That's why I think you have to be very careful with it. Like sometimes I don't even feel comfortable saying the word capital G God itself, but I feel very comfortable saying Allah. Like I don't know, I feel like physical trauma when I say just normal God, but if I say Allah, it's like pleasant. I feel more homeostasis.
What I'm talking about here is why God is depicted in male terms in the Bible.
Because we do everything. We do the most. We do most of doing, the inventing, the creating. I understand why.
Gender-wise, the Bible had
I can see how we would take that data and infer this would be the best way to communicate that.
three choices: masculine, he; feminine, she; or neuter, it. We can readily rule out neuter. For one thing, neuter nouns don't exist
That kind of looks like a staff, which is very repeated symbolism in human history.
in Hebrew, the language of the Old Testament, which, after all, first introduced this God to us. For another, the biblical God is a personal God to whom we can and must relate, and we cannot relate to, let alone obey or love, an it.
Obey, it's very beta.
Aside from the language issue, the Bible depicts God in masculine terms because, one, the Hebrew Bible's primary concern is making a good world; two, a good world can only be achieved by making good people; and three, the people who commit nearly all the world's violence are males.
Like Future said, life's good. God is good. God is the essence of good, the rolling of humanity into the future, right? If that's why they said that they don't want God to have to physically come back on earth again because it will bring the end to humankind. If God physically has to come back, Jesus has to come back, like that just means that like the human race is at a point in where we're going to have to go through a great reset, not like a financial reset, not like a oh the forest got burnt down and it restarted due to some disease that was going on in the forest. No, it's a great reset because the whole world is going to destroy it. Now that's why I personally believe like solar and some progressive things are good because we're only trying to conserve, right? That's like the right and the left. We're trying to conserve our essence. We're trying to conserve the human race. We're trying to keep the balance between nature and human society.
Therefore, it is in both men's and women's interests to depict God in the masculine. Here's why. Without a father or some other male rule giver, young men are likely to do great
Hey, we do most of, you know what I mean? When Pound Town happens, we're doing most of the Pound Towning.
harm.
So, in a sense, when it comes to accountability, it always kind of that's why it always comes back to the male, right? And not every female is willing to lie on a male, but there's a lot of, you know, manipulation and pointing false fingers.
If there is no male authority figure to give a growing boy rules, it is very difficult for him to control his wilder impulses.
Because religion itself, right? It's domestication. It separates you from like, because we're no longer living in wild. That's why when you live in a human society, religion's so needed because you have to be more than just an animal. You have to be more than have more than like animal instincts. That's why there's a difference between a pet and a wild animal, right? That's why they use the word feral cat because your instincts is different. Your life is different. Your lifestyle is different, right? Now, if you were to be living out in the forest or a jungle or something like that, then hey, free will.
As President Barack Obama told an audience in
But when you're living in a country, a society where it takes more than just you for everything to work, you can't just be so destructive, right? But that's why I call it Malibaba. That Mali, that's gonna destroy all those things that will bring us down. That's why I love that word.
2008, children who grow up without a father are 5 times more likely to live in poverty and commit crime, 9 times more likely to drop out of school, and 20 times more likely to end up in prison. Commenting on that speech,
Drop out of school, end up in prison. School teaches you, right, just how the world works. You have an understanding, and you're not like just one dude. I'll say I'm gonna call him TV. Okay, TV. What he does is, because he struggles with retaining, he always reverts back to his curious ways. He's very curious with things rather than asking questions. He thinks he has to do everything himself. He acts like he's Adam, the first man, but he's not. Okay, he can simply just ask a fellow man, a fellow brother or sister, right, to help you out and do what you got to do. Okay, now not everyone's your brother and your sister. Don't forget that. But I wouldn't assume the worst. I would always assume the best.
Dr. Alvin Poussant, a psychiatrist with Harvard Medical School, confirmed these statistics. The absence of fathers corresponds with a host of social ills, including dropping out of school and serving time in jail.
Because, a natural thought before you do something is, how do I do this, right? Subconsciously and consciously. So if you're a male, ideally you're going to look up to the male that you're going to be around, experience the most, the male that's in your life, which tends to be your father, because you would sleep and live at your father's house. You're usually born within your father's territory, right? Because that's where the mother would be, or the whole thing wouldn't have happened. But the story of Shiva and his wife and Ganesh is a very interesting story, a very powerful story.
In other words, if one's primary goal is a good world, specifically a world with far less murder, child abuse, theft, and rape, a God depicted in masculine terms, a father in heaven, not a goddess, a mother in heaven, must be the source of moral commands such as do not murder and do not steal.
Because why are you killing for it? Why are you robbing someone of their experience on life? You know what I mean? Like, you can kill in self-defense, but it shouldn't have been your intent to kill. You didn't kill him. He just died. That's the silver lining right there. You feel me? They died. You didn't kill them. They died. They weren't strong enough to live through the consequences of their decisions.
If the father figure / rule giver that boys need is not on earth, a morally authoritative masculine God can serve as an effective substitute. Any discomfort you might feel with a masculine depiction of God is not comparable to the pain we will all feel if boys are not civilized into good men.
Because you live in a civilization. I'm telling you, bro, if you don't fuck with some of these rules and guidelines, get out. Because, like, all these YouTubers who making some great content be doing some shiesty shit to be able to do that, which is great. You bring us love and enjoyment. I hope you enjoy your time. But now it's like you're paying the price, and you're in territories and environments where it's way more riskier, and the people who care about you and want you to be part of their life have to accept the reality, like, dang, they might lose you besides like natural death.
To transform a wild boy into a good man, a male role model is as necessary as a male rule giver. So when the Bible depicts God as merciful, compassionate, and caring for the poor and the
Forgives and forgets. He forgives and forgets.
widow, it is not so much interested in describing God as in providing.
That's why you see, like, some people, they struggle from amnesia. People tend to forget things. It's not very easy to retain. You have to retain. You have to sharpen the sword, right? It's a cycle.
Providing a model for humans, especially males, to emulate. If God were depicted as female, young men would deem traits such as compassion, mercy, and care for the downtrodden as feminine and would not identify with them.
Right? Now, where did men get these values? They got these values from the female, right? And I can't really tell if that's like right or left, but that's where we got those values from, because we used to have to compete or flex, not kill and murder each other. You see animal deer with their giant horns. They'll battle. They're not killing each other, but they'll battle for respect and appreciation from the female, because there's levels to it. That's why the Egyptians, they had the pyramids. I mean, now we live in a society where we have little rectangles and boxes and forms of art, but because our population is now so big, ideally, I think we're closer to a 50-50 compared to back in the day. I believe it was like there was usually more females than men, or that depends on where you were in the world, okay? That's why there's so many different experiences, so many different forms of history of God's story around the world.
But if God, their Father in heaven, who is strong, on occasion even a warrior, cares for the poor, and loves justice, mercy, and kindness, then these traits are also masculine and to be emulated. The argument that girls equally need female role models to avoid violence is objectively not true, because the problem of mayhem and violence is overwhelmingly a male one.
Like, if you have the mantra, God been there, God been done that, yeah, it gets pretty lit.
Of course, girls need female role
So it's like, why would it not work?
models, but not to avoid violence. And, like boys, girls are more likely to obey a male authority figure. A report released by the Minnesota Psychological Association concluded, in a study of female inmates, more than half came from a father-absent home.
Because the females have
It is
the
therefore
estrogen,
ironic that some
in
women
my
are attempting
opinion,
to render
and
the
the
God of
males
Western
have
religious
testosterone.
morality less masculine, because if their goal is achieved,
And we
it
need
is
that.
women who will suffer most from lawless males. We have too many absent fathers on earth to begin to even entertain the thought of having no father in heaven.
Like, my stepmom tried to tell me that I was lucky that my father took care of me. I'm like, I'm lucky? What do you mean? If he didn't, that's just him being nothing more than a pawn in nature. Like, he's nothing more than a vessel that impregnated my mom, my birth mother, and now I'm here. I'm another Jesus story. If that's the perspective and that's the reality, if that's the reality of life, hello, right? But if it's not, then it's like, wow. Like, wow. Like, why would you even say that? Don't you think that was the wrong? Don't you think that may have been the thought, the thought, and you were supposed to think into the opposite direction to get the positive, progressive thought?
I'm Dennis Prager. Thank you for watching this video. To help keep PragerU
Let me
videos
show
free,
y'all. Now I have to show y'all the story of Shiva Ganesh. What was her name again? Parvati. Was it Parvati? No, Parvati.
Do you want a satisfying
I don't know,
remote
this is probably not
job
the video I
as well?
watched, but
Become a
the way YouTube set it up, it's like, I don't know. I don't think I'll find that exact video. Let's see.
Rather, they are tales that don't fit neatly into the historical record, which serve as a foundation to a culture. High up on Mount Kailash, the goddess Parvati is enjoying a nice relaxing bath. The birds are singing, the sun is shining, and it's an all-around nice afternoon. But suddenly, there's a commotion outside. Is that fighting? Parvati rushes from her bath, but by the time she makes it outside, she finds her son dead, and her husband is the killer.
Right? So this is basically men. This is man right there, right? This is the collective consciousness of a alpha high value male, Shiva. And this is like your more natural Gaia housewife right here.
Parvati, daughter of the Himalayan mountains, is a powerful, benevolent goddess. Her
Gaia, right? Of the mountains, nature.
soft and gentle touch holds the divine power of motherhood, and her love is all-encompassing. Her husband Shiva, however, the destroyer of worlds, is very much the opposite. You see, it is told that the universe
Think about the destroyer of worlds. Where would they have got that from? It's kind of like the same way where the Islamic, Christian, Jewish parts of the world where the devil is here on earth, right? He can depict himself as a man, right? But God's not here, and they influence men and women. See what I'm saying?
Generates in cycles of every 2,160,000,000 years, and at the end of each cycle, Shiva destroys it. But he doesn't just
That's the great reset, restoration of life.
blow it all up. He makes way for a new universe. Thus, Shiva is as much a creative deity as he is a destructive one. But while Shiva spent his non-destructive days meditating and abstaining from all forms of indulgence and pleasure, Parvati stood as a balancing counterpart, bringing some pleasure and domestic bliss to his sometimes wild energy.
That's why no matter what, I'm going to be like, I need a shorty. I need at least one. More than one is... But I need at least one. And I want at least one.
Because of this, they do make a bit of an odd couple, but undoubtedly a happy one. One day, while Shiva was out for his daily meditation in the mountains, Parvati
These are the first two humanoid beings ever, right?
decided to capitalize on the alone time.
Or at least they think they are in their part of the world that they are.
She drew up a bath, put on some tunes, lit some nice scented candles, and ordered Nandi, Shiva's sacred bull, to guard the door and not let anyone in to disturb her. Happy to serve, Nandi took his post. But when Shiva came back from meditating and wanted to come inside, Nandi had to let him pass, being first and foremost loyal to him. So here comes her husband just rolling on through her spa day, putting an end to an extremely frustrating self-care Saturday. With a new
Because nature loves us. If you have the right energy.
determination not to let this happen again, Parvati devised a plan. She took some of the turmeric paste she used to bathe with and molded it into the shape of a boy, breathing life into him and naming her new son, Ganesha. Now she too had someone loyal to her above anyone else. And the next time some soaking in solitude was on the table, Parvati asked Ganesha,
So it took her 9 months to create this baby. A girl has to... If a girl wants kids, ideally, her probability of getting pregnant should skyrocket.
to guard the door. Of course, like clockwork, once again Shiva decided this was the perfect moment to come home. But this time, he found some random kid blocking his way and telling him he couldn't go into his own house? Outrageous! Furious, Shiva asked one of his warriors to destroy this boy. How dare some punk tell him what to do? But because of Ganesha's divine nature, the warrior found that they couldn't kill him. He was the son of a goddess after all. Surprised by this, Shiva realized this was no ordinary little kid he was dealing with, and so letting his frustration get the better of him, he decided to fight the boy himself.
And that's like the stage of fatherhood where the conflict happens and some of the resentments will happen with your dad. And in this society and time, we go through these cycles sometimes, often like yearly. And then for some people, it's over multiple years. So, or even weekly. So that really depends on your relationship and how far you've grown and etc.
And with one swing of his divine trident, Shiva severed Ganesha's head, killing him instantly. When Parvati was drawn by the commotion, only to find her newly created son had been killed by her husband, she was distraught, then outraged. In a fit of passion, she summoned her other ferocious forms and threatened to destroy all of creation. Out came Durga, the warrior queen, who stood proud astride a fearsome tiger, ready to charge into battle, followed by the black-skinned Kali, terrifying goddess of creation and destruction, wielding a blood-soaked sword to cut through the bonds of ignorance and ego, which are represented by the numerous severed heads she holds in her many hands. But before any comeuppance could come up, Brahma, the god of creation, caught wind of what was...
So this is more like Allah, God, right, in other religions. And then everything else under him is just smaller parts of him, more precise parts of the Most High of everything, what is everything.
was going down. And as the creator, had a few little issues with Parvati's plan, so he stepped in, asking her if there was anything he could do that would make her reconsider this whole absolute destruction thing. Parvati said only two things would make her change her mind. First, that her son be brought back to life. And second, that
Jesus.
he be worshipped forever before all other gods. Now by this time, Shiva had cooled down some and realized that he might have overreacted.
Jesus, Muhammad, that's who the son is.
So after some thought and realizing that he was in the wrong, he agreed to Parvati's terms. Unfortunately though, Shiva's weapon was so strong that not even his god powers could put Ganesha back together again. So he turned to Brahma with orders to go out and find a new head for his son so that he might be whole once more. Before long, Brahma returned with the head of a baby elephant. Shiva
too
then
fast.
placed the head on Ganesha's body and breathed life into him anew.
Honestly,
And
I
not
bought-
only
I
did
bought a
he
bad
declare
one, too.
that Ganesha was now foremost among the gods, but he also accepted him as his own true son. And so, they lived as a family, as per their deal, with Ganesha worshipped first before any other god. However, because Shiva was kinda used to being in charge, he sometimes forgot that rule applied to him as well. On one occasion, Shiva was heading out to do battle with some demons, like you do, and mustered his entire army to go along with him. But in the rush, he forgot to worship Ganesha. First, his chariot wheel broke on the way to the battlefield, grinding the march to a halt. Then, there was a terrible storm, which turned the road to mud and blocked their path. These consistent misfortunes had a whiff of the divine to Shiva, which then jolted his memory that worshipping Ganesha before heading out to battle totally slipped his mind. And not wishing further misfortune,
And like literally, like my first son is Tobias, right? My cat. And whenever I just experience life with him, share my love and my energy with him, it's life just feels.
stopped all of his troops and completed the rituals. Then, with Ganesha's blessing
Sometimes all it takes is a quick.
secured, Shiva and his army proceeded to a decisive victory against those dastardly demons, and all seemed good between father and son. Ganesha has become one of the most well-known gods in the Hindu pantheon, with his iconic elephant head and heavy-set human body. And even to this day, before any important undertaking and for every morning prayer, Ganesha is worshipped first before all.
So from like a monotheistic perspective, right? You have to look at Brahma as the Most High itself and everything else under it, right? To be like his angels and the stories and parts and like, let's say, entities that he put into this world to teach and inspire and help us all go through this experience that we're experiencing
the
until we move on.
other gods, even his parents, Shiva and Parvati. So the next time you're undertaking something big, whether it's making your first game, starting a new job, moving to a new home, guarding a bathhouse, or fighting some demons, keep Ganesha in your thoughts. For if your ambition is noble, he's got your back.
And essentially this is where this is now brings back to the whole fear of God. It's more like know thyself. Okay? Know thyself. Have that relationship with thyself. And have that relationship with God, with life, with history, with the future. You know, if you be part of it, if you don't want to be part of it, you will start to revert to hell on earth. You're gonna run into demons, devils, people who are actually positive. They'll say something totally good, and you'll hear nothing but negativity. Your perceptions, your perspectives will be horrible when it could be great and progressive. All right. Till next time, don't forget, like, subscribe, support me on other platforms. You know, eventually I'm going to start doing giveaways, raffles, things like that. But I can't do that right now. And if I do start doing those things right now, I'm personally going to feel like a scam or I'm going back on my own word. So those things will be coming in the future. For right now, it'll just be merch and like crazy discounts on merches and things like that.
Legendary thanks to Ahmed Ziad Turk